Hey everyone, it's Kelly from Silly Moon Quilting Co. Today we're going to talk about our newest rulers, I guess, Frostie and Topper. These are the rulers that we use to make snowflakes, and we're just going to go over why there's two and what options those create for you. So before we get started, I want to just show you how you're going to use this on your ruler foot. Now, this depends on whether you're working on a long arm or a domestic machine, because of course we offer this ruler in two thicknesses, 1/4 or 1/8. So I've got a couple extra feet here, and I just want to show you how you would use those on different machines. And the same applies to any ruler of ours that has a little slot like that, so Cheesy or Gemini or any of those rulers, the same principle applies. So I've got a generic ruler foot here, and that would be the similar to what I have on my domestic machine. So to make that work, I've got my needle down, and I'm just going to simply lift my ruler foot and slide that right under, and then bring my ruler foot back down somewhere in the center there, not right on top of that. Now, if I'm working on a long arm machine, my foot is going to look something like this, and a lot of times it's a little more difficult to lift the whole foot to get the ruler underneath. So what you're simply going to do is take that ruler and slide it over top of your shank and then bring it back down, and then you can bring the ruler up and nest it in there to be able to go around with the head of your machine. So that's how that would work on a long arm. We're going to start using Frostie, and then we'll add some extra stuff here. I'll show you why we have two rulers using Topper. So I'm going to move Topper out of the way a little bit, and we're going to bring Frostie in. So you can see here the name, obviously, and some markings on there that are engraved. And you can see also that I've got my sticky tape that comes with all of the packages on there. Again, I've got my not so fancy black gloves on that work just because of filming. And I want to show you here, and this is really important when you're working with this ruler, you'll see here that there's an outline, and that is the size of one of your arms, or part of your arms for your snowflake. So we're going to use that outline to get the repeatability all the way around to make our perfect six-sided snowflake. And of course, then we can change up the top of the snowflake, but let's do this part first. So you can see here I've drawn a line on my quilt top, and I'm going to lift my ruler foot. I'm going to work this direction because I just find it's a little bit easier. So I'm sliding my ruler under, and I'm giving myself lots of room so that that ruler foot's not going to come down on top of my ruler. And I'm going to drop my ruler foot. Then I'm going to pull that ruler back towards me. And I've got a cross line on here too, so I've got a cross grid. So this line that's on the bottom of the ruler here is in line with my needle. So that's what it's going to go on my cross seam. So that's going to make sure that I stay nice and square. And then I've got another line going through here, which will be the center of my snowflake. So this is a little bit different than a lot of our other rulers just because of the way we want them to work. So I'm going to hold my ruler, and you're going to hold it nice and firm. It's a decent sized ruler, but there's no problem. Just make sure you have enough sticky tape, and if you feel that it's not quite enough, then go ahead and add a little bit more. And there's no problem there. You can take it off one ruler and put it on another, not a problem. So I'm going to hold this down, and then I'm going to do half of this. So I've done my locking stitches. I'm going to hold my ruler. I'm going to come up, and I'm just using that as a guide, and go slow around that corner if you're fairly new to ruler work. And then I'm going to come up, and I'm going to stop when I get to that point. Just going to move that camera a little bit so you can see a little better back there. There we go. Pardon the black tape, it eliminates the light. So I've done my first stitch line, and then I'm going to lift this up and slide my ruler out. So I'm just going to turn this so you can see what that looks like. So it looks like half of a part of a leg. So then I'm going to lift this up again, and I'm going to pick which one of these I want my snowflake topper to be. So let's start with a simple one. We'll start with this one. So I'm simply going to slide this back under, bring my ruler foot down, and I'm going to remember which side I ended on. So I ended on the left side or my left side here on the left side. So I'm going to bring my ruler foot to the same side, and it's going to nest quite nicely in these little cutouts, okay? So then I'm going to pull that back there, and I'm going to line up my straight line again here on my marked line. I'm going to hold my ruler down, and I'm going to go all the way around. I'm not stopping halfway this time. I'm going all the way around until I stop here. Then I'm going to lift this up again, and I'm going back to the original one that I did. And you want to make sure that your center line is lined up. And I'm going to bring that all the way down so that where I had come around here and stopped here, then we came up with that other portion, so this portion, and back down. Now I'm going on this part, and you'll see here, there's a little indent here, so that's going to stop your ruler foot. So just pay attention to that when you're coming around. Don't try to go around that corner. And just to confirm I'm nice and square, I'm using my line straight through here that is the center all the way across the ruler to make sure that I'm nice and square. And I'll just do a double check in the back to make sure that I'm in the center there. So I'm going to hold my ruler again. And then I'm going to follow it down and around. And that's going to bring me right back to where I started. So now we've got, and I'll lift that out of the way for you to see, we've got one arm of the snowflake. But now we want to rotate that so we get our perfect six-sided snowflake. So we've ended here, and all we need to do is we're now going to rotate this until it's on top of the line I just stitched. So it's very similar in that way to our drop rulers, where you get that rotational, but you've got a marking on the ruler to allow you to know that you're lined up, okay? So I'm going to hold everything nice and secure, and I can see that I'm lined up quite nicely there. And you can make the choice now to rotate the quilt a little bit to you if you like to keep working that same direction, or you can keep it square, whatever works. I'm going to turn it just so that it's easier for you to see. And then I'm going to come back up, and you'll notice that that works perfectly to keep that line nice and straight. And I'm going to stop when I get here. And just for the sake of shaking things up a little bit, if I wanted this to be the same all the way around, I would continue the same way using this square one. But let's switch that up a bit and use a different topping or topper. And I'm going to line that up there. Now, if you look at the back of this, and this is made when you're first learning with this ruler, this will help you quite a bit. You can see on the back here, there's a line that goes through here. I'll bring this over top so you can see that a little better. There's this line here on the ruler that's just outside the slot. That line will line up with your stitch line here, and that will make sure that you're nice and square. So hopefully you can see that. There's a line that goes there, and that lines up perfectly with my stitch line there. And then I'm going to go all the way around again. Back around. And I'm going to stop when I reach that point and lift up my ruler, and again bring this back in through here. And I know that I stopped on this side, so now I'm on the other side, and just to make sure that I'm nice and oriented, I'm going to double check again and make sure that this line, my stitch line, turn that so you can see it, my stitch line is underneath here. So that makes sure that I'm nice and lined up there. So you can see that I'm right underneath that line. So I know that I'm nice and square. I do a double check on that side to make sure that my points are going to line up. And then I'm just going to hold my ruler. And the more you do this, you'll get better at it, and you won't need to turn your quilt and check so much. But when you're starting, it's a good way to check just to make sure that you're nice and lined up. And then I'm going to come back down here, and that's going to bring me right back to the point where I started. So now we have two different snowflake tops. So that's where our topper ruler comes in. All of these will nest exactly the same way that I just showed you those two. So you'll use the main ruler, you'll use Frostie to create the main leg, or this part. And then these little sections are different shapes that will give you different tops to your snowflake to make each one individually. So you can do all of the snowflake, all 6 with the circle, or you can do all 6 differently, whichever works for you. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how that works, doing all 6 differently. I'm probably going to stop talking and just speed this up a bit. Otherwise, this video is going to be way too long. But you can see here I've got my first 2. So let's do one more. So I'm going back to my original shape, bringing my ruler foot down, and I am lining up that now over my next one. So I finished here, and I'm rotating so that the stitched line is underneath the engraved line that's on the ruler. And then I'm going to hold that and come all the way around and stop when I get there. Lift that up, and now I'm going to bring in Topper, and you can see here I've got my sticky tape on Topper as well. And let's do this one. Let's do the round one. So it is going to line up exactly the same. I'm going to bring my ruler foot down. I'm going to bring this over so that that corner is lined up. And if I'm not so sure, I will turn this so that I can see that this engraved line that goes through here is lined up with that line. And that will make sure that I'm nice and square. Okay? I'm all lined up. I'm going to hold on to Topper. And exactly the same. So if you've used our cheesy ruler for circles, it's very similar as far as just going around the inside of a curve. So then I'll lift that one up and I'll move it out of the way. And I'll come back to my main section. Bring my ruler foot down in the middle. I'm going to line that up. Now if you look here too, if you look here, this one and this one, these lines will line up here and here when you're doing your top. So when you get back to the other side, you know you're nice and square. You've got here and here to line that up, as well as you're going to make sure that your stitch line from the previous one, the previous arm, is underneath the engraved line that's on the ruler, and that will make sure that you're all nice and squared up. So we need to move that just a little bit to make sure we're nice and square. There we are. And then that will allow us to come back up the other side. And this will get faster the more you do it. And remember, no 2 snowflakes are alike, so if you're not exactly perfect, then that's okay too. And that will bring us back to our center. And then we just keep going around, and I'm going to do this with each of the different tops so you can see all six different tops when I'm done. But I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to speed this up so that we're not here for 3 hours watching me stitch, because I'm sure you'd rather be sewing than watching me sew. And there you go. A perfect six-sided snowflake. And you can see that each of these tops is different. And you can, of course, use these tops to do a whole bunch of different things in different shapes and designs on your quilt as well. But we'll get to that in another video. So thank you very much for checking out our snowflake video today. We would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe and comment down below as to what you think about our snowflake ruler. Thanks so much and have an amazing day.